Okay, it looks like we are live. Good morning, everybody. Grab your cup of coffee. We're going to have a lot of fun today. So, this is part 3 of my open review opportunity that I provided to all YouTube subscribers. Again, sorry to be repetitive, but I'm still getting people still sending me tracks. I have closed the opportunity, okay? So, if you weren't a subscriber or you didn't submit when I asked for the tracks, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. I'm not offering any more feedback as of today. So don't send me any more thinking you can kind of just get in right now. I will let you know when I do another one of these when I offer more. But right now we still have about 50 more tracks to get through. So I obviously don't have time to be accepting more. I'll never get out of this. So I just want to make sure that you guys know that in order to get your tracks reviewed next time, just stay subscribed, keep tuned in, and I'll put an announcement out there. I think what I'll do next time, because I was just overwhelmed by so many tracks, is I will probably do just a live video. And during that live video, if you tune in live and you catch it live, I'll ask you to submit your track to me that right then and there. And then I'll actually just take your tracks and review it in the live session. So that way we can keep our submissions to a minimum. And I'll kind of vary the times that I go live, so not everybody always gets their tracks reviewed, but I'll try to, spread it out. So the first thing you should do is definitely subscribe, like this video, like any video that you like on my channel. That always helps me out and it helps spread the word about this industry to other producers and musicians that are struggling and maybe could really benefit from this knowledge. So you're actually helping them out too by sharing my videos and liking this stuff. So, I'm not, unfortunately, going to be able to look at your guys' comments. I haven't been able to in the last couple of videos either, just because I have to focus on getting the reviews, giving you guys feedback and stuff. So I apologize if you're probably screaming at your computer sometime going like, Jesse, no. I'm not even looking at the comments right now. They're in another window. So I'm sorry, I'm not even looking at them right now, just so you guys are aware. But please enjoy the show. Even if your track's not getting reviewed today, most people are saying that they're learning a lot just by watching me review other people's music. And that's definitely how you should be approaching this, that you shouldn't just be fast forwarding through this video or not tuning in until your track shows up. You should be watching as much as you possibly can, because we can all learn from each other. And that's the whole point of my channel and the Syndicate. So I'm going to do another shameless plug here, guys. So as you probably know, I do have a private mentoring and licensing group called the Syndicate. It's a private Facebook group, and we do get our members' songs placed in TV shows. As you can see here, we just got word last week that some of the songs we were doing got put into Crash Karaoke TV show for MTV International. So some people ask, like, do you really get placements in this group? Yes, we absolutely do. It's happening all the time, and this is just the most recent one we secured for 2 of our members, actually. So that was cool. And, in this group, I give you guys sort of like these little mini webinars, essentially, that I'm not giving anybody on YouTube. These are not YouTube videos that you guys can get access to. So as a member of the Syndicate, you get exclusive video content. So this one I'm talking about approaching music libraries, a system versus a goal approach. A lot of people have these really specific goals they want, like they want to get into a TV show or into a movie or into a specific library. But I talk about why that's not really the great approach. What you should be doing is thinking about yourself is having a really impactful system that's sort of like you're casting a wider net into the industry, and you can do a lot better that way, actually, if you change your approach in this business. So I do these videos here and there. This one's, as you can see, it's about 20 minutes long, and a lot of people seem to like this one. A lot of good comments, a lot of good likes. This is one where I did the open reviews for the homework. So like what I'm doing right for you guys right now with my YouTube channel, I do this on my Syndicate members once a month. Like I'm always giving them open reviews so that they can just submit whatever they're working on. And I give them notes, specifically for TV film licensing. Okay. So just so you're aware, that's how we, do that kind of a thing. We're talking about, getting some good pad sounds. I'm giving you guys some great reference tracks. So if I'm looking for certain kinds of music, like right now I'm looking for some EDM tracks. So I'm typically going to give you guys reference tracks of exactly what I want, of what exactly we're going for with the current licensing opportunity. So this is where I gave you guys the cues. Other members here are giving us some like great tutorials on how to use certain plugins. Here's another one I talked about submitting the library successes and failures. So this is the one where I went live and was kind of taking some live Q&As from a lot of the members and stuff. So anyways, that's basically it. I just wanted to give you guys a little view of what it's like to be inside of the Syndicate. And again, if you'd like to learn more, you can always click on the link right below this video. There's an explainer video that'll tell you how to get started, what the fee is, and what are the benefits, basically, of being a part of this great group. I can tell you it's worth it. If you need feedback, if you want a community to be a part of, if you'd like to have some licensing opportunities, if you'd like to get basically some structure to your career. A lot of musicians and producers, they're just kind of aimlessly producing music and they don't really know what they're doing. This group will give you structure. It'll give you a sort of week by week game plan of what you should be doing to get closer and closer to doing this full time. So with one last sip of coffee, we will get started. Okay, as promised. And again, guys, we have about 50 tracks left. What's likely going to happen is I'll get through about 25 of them today, and then we'll do our final 25, the last review video, probably next Monday. I like this kind of doing it once a week on Mondays. These are kind of intense videos for me, as you know. I'm doing 2.5 hour live videos with you guys, so it kind of kills my voice. It does zap me of a little bit of energy, and I do need to sort of pace myself through all this to make sure that I'm not taken away from, because I'm still composing music. If you guys aren't aware, like, I still do this full time. I'm still creating music for TV shows, movies, commercials every single week. So that's primarily what most of my time goes to. And then I also obviously provide my mentorship guidance. I'm doing YouTube videos, so pretty busy. And so I got to like pace myself with this kind of stuff, especially with this many tracks. So we'll get through as many as we can today. Maybe we'll do 25, maybe more if I'm feeling more ambitious, maybe less if I kind of give out. But we will definitely get through everybody's track who followed directions and submitted to me when I asked for it. All right. So number 1, I think Kyung Hom. I think that's how we pronounce it. So you stumbled across my YouTube. So here we are. So right on, man. Let's see what you got. So I kind of see what you're doing here. Couple of notes though. One, and I've said this so many times, but I'm going to say it again in case you didn't catch it. Slow ballad type tracks don't do that well in the TV film world. Most libraries, supervisors, and opportunities are calling for mid or up tempo tracks. So that's just first and foremost. Secondly, your samples are sounding very like template sounding, like they sound like they just came out of a sampler that you just opened up and found something. They sound dated as well. They kind of have a little bit of a 90s or an 80s throwback style sound, which can work, but you do need to make sure that like your drums at least have a modern sound, and these drums definitely have a sort of kind of flat dated sound as well. So I think for you, staying away from the slow ballads, obviously, and then updating the samples would probably at least get you much closer to something that would be very licensable and very attractive to a music library. Let's see what else you got in here though. Yeah, see these drums, they're not like slamming and they're not really giving me much of an impact at all. So I think either it could be a mixing issue, but it could also probably be the samples that you're using. You could probably just update those drum samples and get something that's a little bit more impactful. Yeah, and then the last note, I've said this on a few other review videos too. We want to probably keep our tracks to 2 to 3 minutes long. So 4:39, that's just going to be way too long. So you could cut your track all the way down to probably around here, 3 minutes. So if you don't know what to cut out because you love your whole track, basically what you're going to want to do is, you keep a verse, a chorus, a verse 2, which is different than verse 1, chorus 2, different from chorus 1, then a bridge, and then a last chorus, which is the biggest chorus, which is different than everything, and it's large. So with all of that, you could probably cut down everything that's going on in this track and get it down to that 3-minute level, though. All right, let's see who's next. You've been following on YouTube for a while. You want to thank you for all the content. You're welcome, man. You want to know about the Syndicate? Okay. accept a short call during the weekend. Sorry, wow, you're from Belgium, man. That's cool. I don't really do a lot of phone calls, guys, because as you can imagine, I'm a pretty busy person. So if you can just email me your questions, whatever it is about the syndicate. So here, I don't know what your name is, man. Oh, Blair. Oh, Ben Amor. Sorry, man. I don't know if if it's Ben or Bayer or something, man. So I'm butchering your name. I'm totally sorry about that. But yeah, getting on the phone with me is one of those things. I used to do it a lot more, and I just don't have the time for it right now because, as you guys can imagine, a lot of people do call and they just want to kind of tell me about their story, which is, I'd love to hear everybody's story. It's, it's fun to just chit chat about the business, but that's just not what I have time for in my life right now. Reading an email is much faster. If you can let me know what's going on, what kind of point of view you have, or what's your particular situation in life and in your career, and just email it to me, and you make it very succinct. Don't send me a whole book of your entire life story, but just get to the point. Let me know what's going on. I can give you guys some feedback. I can give you some advice. I can give you some perspective. But be considerate of my time, that I have very little of it, very little free time. And so the more that you can get right to the point and direct me to what your question is, let me know. So if you have a question about the syndicate, I'm all ears. That link below, you can click on that. A lot of times that'll answer most of your questions. But if not, just email me and I'll be happy to answer any of those. Okay, I love the drums and I love the whistle. Those are things you should definitely keep. The guitar plucking or the synth plucking, whatever those sounds are, they sound a little pitchy actually. They don't sound like they're right. They're not stable enough. And I kind of want to hear just more of like a bass guitar and maybe an electric guitar, kind of doing some palm muting or something like that. So it feels like there's a little bit of a mismatch with the instruments here. Definitely a tuning issue. So I think you recorded these guitars live or whatever it is here live. And I hear them a little out of tune. So all guitar players watching this or whatever you're going to record with strings, you should be probably tuning every single take, right? Play your take, play the verse, play whatever, stop, bring your tuner up and tune up every string. You got to do that. You got little tuning issues in your track and it's going to send the whole thing. It's going to the whole thing will fall apart. I have made this mistake, and that's why I'm saying this, that I used to record a lot of rock tracks, and one guitar would be a little bit off tune and the whole track just didn't feel good. It just didn't sound right. And you'll be impressed that when you finally just fix that tuning issue, suddenly like the world, like the clouds open up and the world just starts revolving for you. Everything just starts spinning the right way and your track starts just feeling good. And a lot of it has to do with just tuning. This part's a little too subdued, and it's kind of how you started the track, and it didn't grab me yet, but like if you would have just started with maybe an impact, like bam, and then I hear that whistle, and then you kind of get a little shaker, and then a drum fill, and then the whole beat comes in. That would have sucked me into this track really quickly, but with this kind of subdued intro, because it's kind of got that filter on it or whatever, so it's not pulling me into the track as much as it could. So yeah, there's definitely some tuning issues, and then also mix-wise, I think you've cut out a little bit too much of the mid-range, or maybe you haven't boosted it enough. I'm not sure what's going on in your session, but it feels like a very hollow mix. It's got a lot of low end, a lot of high end, but I'm not hitting the mid-range is really where you get that loudness in a lot of tracks. So if you're scooping too much of those out because you are trying to tighten up your mix or something, I get it, but like when you do it too much, especially when that synth lead came in, it really feels just hollow, like it's not present enough. So definitely something to think about. And let me see what you did on the end here. Yeah, so definitely make sure that when you do tracks for TV film, give us a definite hit at the end. No fade outs, no sort of like, ending on a snare hit or ending on a 2 or something. Give us that downbeat. Bam. That's typically the way you want to go when you send it to these companies. Paco Music sent me a link. Right on, man. Let's see what you got. First of all, I like that you just got right into the track. Maybe I would have liked to hear a little bit of a drum fill first. It kind of just hit me out of the blue. It'd be nice to be set up with a little bit of a and then just get us into it. One note is I'm hearing a lot of noise with your synths that you're putting in here. So I dig it. I like the vibe you're going for, but I hear more noise than I hear music, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of like industrial metal sounds happening with these growls and synths. And so I'm not hearing much of a melody coming through with the instruments that you've chosen. So it's a little bit of an issue. Okay, I like what you're doing here. That low synth though, bam. You either got to really mix that a little bit better, or you got to just try a new sample, because it feels so small. It's like ding, when it should be bah. It should be like shaking me, right? Grabbing me and just whoa. It's almost like you should give your listener the impression that they're getting electrocuted, right? And it should really just shock you a little bit. In order to do that, you got to have a lot more low end to it. You need to have a little bit more of probably a little bit more grit to it, as well as some distortion. But really, it just needs to be wider in the stereo mix, and probably a lot more of that low booming energy needs to come through. So maybe a sample issue, but it could be a mixing issue too. I would encourage you to start getting used to putting transitional elements in your track. So especially when we when we transition, there you go. Sorry guys, brain's not working yet. Transition from this section to that section, we need to have maybe a swoosh that comes up, or a crash, or an impact, or a cool sound effect. But get used to, when you're changing up something in your track, you want to give your listener some sort of a clue that there's going to be a change coming. And in order to do that, you want to put these transitional effects and elements into your music. Yeah, because I can hear the cool melodic movement you're doing underneath your tracks the leads in the foreground. But those leads, they just seem like you have this cool music underneath, and then there's just like robots in front, and they're not really adding musically much. So I would probably rethink how you did that kind of a thing, just to make it more musical. But definitely good high energy, up tempo. You got that going for it, so that's awesome. All right, Sam, you got one. Follow the link. Yep. Okay, cool. Good energy, Sam. So a couple of things. Hip hop is very impacted, meaning there are hundreds of thousands of hip hop producers out there. This particular hip hop song that you have going on right now is so played. It's so overplayed in this business. So I would caution you against just staying kind of right down the middle. This is kind of like, I don't know, street gangster thug, cinematic hip hop. I mean, I'm not really into the hip hop world, so I'm sorry if I'm not like nailing the specific subgenre or what you're going for here. But I've heard this sound many, many, many times. So what I would highly recommend you do, instead of just going on the sort of like traditional route of what you would do with a hip hop track, try something completely new. I remember last week, I think we had somebody that came in with almost like an Americana, like a plucked guitar on top of a hip hop beat. And I was like, that's cool. That's different. That's going to set you apart. That might get you into some doors that you couldn't otherwise get into. But this sound is dime a dozen. Everybody can produce this music. There's so much of this stuff in the TV film world that I wouldn't want you to start submitting to libraries and constantly get rejected. And it's not because you necessarily have bad music or bad tracks. It's just that they've already got it, right? There's just so much of this out there. So I would highly encourage you to start thinking about creating what I call hybrid tracks. There's where you're, combining 2 or maybe 3 different genres into one. So if hip hop is where you stay, think about adding something on top of it. Maybe orchestral, maybe some more dubstep, maybe some rock. Like the other guy, he was doing some Americana stuff. So there's so many different ways you can go with it. So definitely get creative and try a bunch of different things. But I would stay away from the sort of tried and true, gangster hip hop or just rap music that you kind of hear and you've been hearing your whole life. Try to reinvent the wheel a little bit with this, because this one is very, very saturated, especially with the hip hop world. Mix wise, it's a little bit loud. I can see that there's a lot of compression going on, or I can hear rather, there's a lot of compression going on. And then the samples you're using, I would probably update those. Maybe go try to find some really cool sample packs. Check out splice.com. They have a lot of great cutting edge modern stuff. Like every week they add new sample packs. So try some new things out, because a lot of these sounds sound a little bit like, I've heard them in a lot of tracks before. So, but you obviously have cool melody ideas. You got cool rhythm ideas. Drums are cool. So you have like the skills, but I would say like kind of reinvent yourself a little bit. Think about yourself as a different sort of a hip hop producer, and try to put yourself in your own lane and try not to compete with everybody else who's doing this sound. Yeah, right now as it is, like the track feels a little bit like, I want to say boring. It's not boring, but it's just not pushing forward enough. You know what I'm saying? Like I kind of feel like I'm not getting sucked into it. It's not making me want to find out what happens next in the track. And it might be the tempo. It's a little bit slower. But there probably just needs to be more like 16th note elements going on in this track to kind of just keep the momentum moving forward a little bit. So this one, I would say go back to the drawing board and try things in a completely new way, and try to really get into your own lane. I think that's the way to go forward, especially with the hip hop stuff. All right, Mark. Very cool to offer this. Channel's been really helpful on the journey. Cool. Clock watching. After 20 months and 140 tracks, we finally found out one of our tracks will be used on a local radio ad in Australia for a Renault dealer running from October to December. All right on, man. Congrats on that. It's pretty cool. Every placement counts, so that's pretty awesome, man. Let's see what you got here. Already I can tell this would be really cool background cue, obviously, for it could be a crime show, could be reality show as well. It could be elimination kind of thing, but definitely I have this vibe of just like, this is a great like sort of wallpaper kind of behind the scenes sort of a track. So you've got that going, which is really cool. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I can definitely see this being used for some sort of a background cue or a minimal cue for a bunch of different kinds of documentaries, or even like news kind of promos, or whatever news. Like they could put them like mini documentaries that they put on news programs, or they're interviewing people or whatever. So I could definitely see this being used for that. I would highly recommend, though, that you probably beef up a little bit more of your drums. I don't hear a lot of low-end thuds, or toms, or maybe timpani, or maybe some bass drums. Probably need a little bit more of that happening here towards the end. Remember, you can always strip it out if you need to for a library. If they say, hey, we want something without drums, mute the drum track. There you go. You got this whole thing. So I think to keep this a little bit more impactful and maybe even get more placements with it, probably start getting used to the idea of every minimal cue should start building up the drums at the very end, and then bam, have that big impact at the end. But really cool, man. Obviously, I don't know how long you've been doing this, if this is something you've been involved with for a while, but it seems like you have a really good handle on the TV film licensing business and how these tracks really should be put together. So really cool, man. Tracy, all right, let's see what you got here. All right, Tracy, first thing is your track should be a lot louder, probably at least 6 dB louder. It's fairly quiet compared to some other tracks I've been listening to today already. So that's first and foremost. Crank up either your master bus or crank up your tracks. Get a little bit more aggressive with the way that you're outputting this. I really dig this, actually. The one thing that I'm not digging is the synth that you use for the 16th notes. Because I hear it all chopping up and kind of being a little bit like robotic sounding. And I think obviously everything getting louder would probably help a little bit, but I think that synth probably I would swap out for something else, a little bit more modern sounding, and probably with less high frequency, like the high attack that it has. It's kind of a little bit too much. I almost want to hear that as a low pulsing bass, you know, something like that, almost very like subwoofery, almost like an 808 kind of thing that's just pulsing on the bottom end. But I definitely could see this doing some cool things, but that synth that you used right there, it's not quite doing it for me. So you have this really cool, almost like half throwback sound of maybe like some disco or funk or something, and then you have this kind of modern glitch funky thing going on too. So there's a kernel of something really powerful you got here. It needs to be further developed though. So this is kind of just the idea that I'm hearing. I need this thing to be like fully produced, right? You got to crank up the volume. You probably need to add a lot more production elements to it. It probably could use some more percussion. Again, it's kind of a quiet mix, so it's hard for me to kind of get into the intricate details of what could really be done. But, I mean, if you could create some sort of a sound that gives me this sort of like maybe a mid-'80s or late-'80s feel, a kind of like a synth funk kind of a feel, but with a modern edge to it and modern grit to it, you'd be in a really cool, unique spot all of your own. Not many people do that genre. It's a very uncommon thing to do. So a lot of potential there. So I'd look into that. But definitely, I think updating some of your samples, trying some new things, and then getting, again, just more aggressive with your output. Get this thing a lot louder because you don't want to be the quietest mix in the bunch. Even if you get accepted by a library, I learned this lesson early on that I got some of my tracks accepted, but my track next to somebody else's was always quiet, always quiet, always quiet. And so I can imagine that if I were a producer or a music supervisor or an editor for a TV show and I was supposed to go through and find the track, the quietest ones typically aren't the ones that are going to get the placements because they just don't really sing as loud. They don't really shine as bright. So just getting your volume up on par with the rest of the competition out there is a really important thing, no matter what genre of music you're making. All right, Dan Mac Music, cool. Cool. Let's see what you got here, man. So I dig what you're doing here, man. We've got some tuning issues, though. So make sure when you're plugging in these guitars, tune every single time you track. And if you need to, I've done this so many times that I'll have like some of my guitars, like there's certain parts of the bridge of my guitar where it doesn't like quite stay in tune. It might be just a little bit off. So what I'll have to do is I'll play the whole like progression. Let's say it's like a 4-bar progression. I'll play it, and then I'll have this one note that's always a little bit off. So I'll actually literally have to go in and punch in that one note with my guitar, and I'll just sit there and just play that one note. And then I actually edit it in my Logic Pro program so that I have a perfect guitar take. Okay, so you got to do what it takes to make sure that you have no tuning issues at all. If it takes you to one note at a time, record that thing, do it, okay? There is no exceptions, and there are no disclaimers you can put along with your tracks to say like, oh, check out my cool track. I know there might be some tuning issues, but it's still a great track. It doesn't work, right? Either your track is ready to be licensed or it's not. And if there's tuning issues, I don't care who you're sending your tracks to, it's going to get rejected. They're going to say, nah, not really. You got to look at your tuning. You got to look at your guitar stuff. So this one, there's definitely a lot of tuning issues. So you're going to have to go back and re-record these guitars and try this one again. But I kind of dig, what you're doing here, though. You have this sort of like secret agent man kind of spy thing going on with your music there. Now you have some sports, you have something like a soccer ball and a football and a basketball. So maybe you were intending this to be more of a sports thing. And if that's the case, let me try to give you some more notes on that. This part feels a little bit more like sports to me, but if you're going to do sports stuff, basically you got to just keep things that are just steady and driving and upbeat. So even this drum beat you have here, it's very like kind of stuttery, so it's not like just grooving. So instead of having that kind of a beat, I'd have a it's just got to be grooving and moving. The faster, obviously, the more intense you can make it. The more placements you can get, because if you get this like just fast, really awesome grooving part, it can be used for NASCAR for speed placements, or it could be used for just basketball or football or baseball or whatever. So you probably want to stay with more just driving right down the middle kind of rock drum patterns and musical patterns to get in there. So this one is just dun, 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 dun. It's almost got that sort of like bossa nova jazz kind of feel, and that's going to take you away from the sports world. So if that's what you were going for, that's what I'd recommend, to try to get a little bit more in line with that. Sports is huge, though. If you can get into sports, you can make some really good money in this industry. Straight guap. Cool. Let's see what you got here, man. Track was not found. Maybe it was been removed. Sorry, buddy. You sent me a track that's no longer there. Memes beats or mems beats. Cool. Let's see what you got here. I think it's mems. Good energy, man. I like this. This feels good. It's upbeat. A little too compressed. I hear a lot of compression happening in your master bus. So whatever you're doing with that master compression, you got to ease off those settings a bit. Let your track breathe a little bit. Don't be afraid to give it some dynamics. It can be quiet at times. It can get loud. But when you start cranking everything up and then you compress it, you start losing. It starts to really just kind of rub the ears the wrong way, because it starts to feel like you're squeezing. It's almost like you're squeezing your whole mix through a tube of toothpaste, and that's what it starts to feel like. Yours isn't terrible. It isn't like super, super compressed, but it's definitely passing the threshold of what I can consider like passable. At least if I was going to be taking your track for one of my opportunities, I would ask you to ease off of these compression settings, because it'd be too much. One thing I would recommend, because you have a lot of these like sort of quarter note patterns, dum bum 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 bum, you know, it kind of makes the track feel a little bit stagnant, like we're kind of just sitting in place. So either adding more percussion that it's faster, you know, 16th note, or trying some percussion, or maybe adding some like stuttering synths that are something like that would actually help move this track forward a little bit. Even what would be cool if you put a stuttering synth 16th notes and then you put it in a side chain, so that in between each kick, it kind of was breathing and pulsating, so it kind of came through, and that'll help push this thing forward a little bit more. And then also, obviously, 5 minutes is a little bit long for this industry, so I would keep this down. It seems like you're kind of repeating a lot of this stuff, and this could be probably a great track for an artist as well, so that might have been what you intended it for. But for this industry, keep it to 3 minutes max, essentially, maybe 3:30. Some people will let you push that, but really 2 to 3 minutes should be everything that somebody needs from your track. So you probably can cut out a lot of the parts that are repeating here that have just been copied and pasted, and make sure that I like here you added the second high octave for your lead synth. That's really, really cool. Got to make sure that last chorus is always different than the other ones, and it seems like you've already done that. Let me see what you did at the end here. Yeah, and I would just add that. It's a cool ending, but I would just add that boom, impact, kick, and make sure you give us that like stab at the end so that they can use that if they need that. All right, Dale. Cool, man. Let's see what you got here. Dale, I'm going to guess that you've been in this industry for a while. And I think this, did I already review one of your tracks? Hold on. I feel like I just saw that same icon in something else. So I don't know if I'm giving you 2 reviews, man. You're getting a freebie here, maybe not. But I remember just seeing this before. So, but you obviously sound like you've done this before. This is a perfect cue already for reality shows, documentaries. There's a lot of stuff that this could be used for, but this stuff gets used all the time. So I don't know if you've been in this industry for a while, if this is just how you're producing tracks, but you're in a good position with this sound and this production style. So everybody else watching right now, this track has all these twists and turns. It's changing. It's not repeating over and over again. So there's a lot of options, right? Options is a big golden key word in this business. Money, man. So Dale, you could be doing very, very well in this business if you're not already. Let me see what you said. Yeah, you didn't say. I don't know, man. You definitely have an awesome sound, man. Very licensable. So get out there and start submitting to libraries, man. You have a bright future ahead of you, man. That's a really great sound you got. All right, David, you sent me a direct link, and the video is unavailable. Sorry, buddy. Don't know what's going on with that one. I know it's going to be frustrating because maybe you're yelling at me right now, but I'm not looking at the comments. So, okay, this is you sent me 2, but this is the new one you want to do. Okay, so cool.
Long line of one they could keep themselves clean. All starts with being a
Definitely could see a lot of possibilities for this. I have some mix notes for you. A lot of this mix is in the mid and high range, and I don't hear a lot of the low end. So like the guitars, the strings, the violin or whatever's plucking there, playing, and then the vocals are all kind of in the same area. And so I'm kind of losing the vocals and I'm losing everything because they're all right together. So I think it just needs a little bit of space. So obviously you want to give the vocals probably the foreground. You want that to be the big thing that's really coming out of the mix, and let everything just support that. So if there's frequencies in the violin, let me see what else is playing. You can also do panning as well, because now I hear, the guitar, the vocals, and the violin, I think, playing in the same place, and that's what's really sort of, it's too much in one area. So I think either scooping out some of the EQs in the violins and the guitars would help, but also maybe doing some panning, keeping that violin off to the left or to the right while the vocals are taking the foreground would help give you that sort of sense of space. The one analogy or metaphor that I like to use with music for spacing things out is just imagine that there's a play on stage with your song, okay? So if you've ever been to a play, a Broadway play, any play, are there ever 3 actors talking on top of each other and just in the same area, no. Typically you'll have an actor speak and then another one, or there'll be one giving a monologue. And when you have a vocal or a lead or whatever, that's essentially your actor providing a monologue. And if there are any other actors on stage, what are they doing? Are they waving around and trying to get your attention and talking, and there's a lot of distractions? No, they're just there to provide atmosphere. They're there to just sort of provide support and structure for or context for the lead. And that's exactly what we should be doing with our music productions. We should have our leads be our main actors giving the monologues, and everything else should be designed to be supporting that. And right now it feels like there's conflicting actors in your play. And obviously I can tell a little bit with your wave file here that it's very cranked up and we're kind of compressed a little bit. So I'm not hearing and feeling a pulse of the kick or the drums pulling through. And I think that's because it's just cranked up a little too loud and you guys compressed it a little bit. So I'd ease off of that settings. Don't be afraid to give yourself a little bit of space with your mix. You don't need to be cranking it up like that and thinking that like that's the way it's going to be competitive with the competition, because when you do this, it sort of really over compresses things and it actually will turn off somebody from wanting to use your track or whatever here on Song Trader. Really cool voice though. I definitely think this is a very licensable voice. It's kind of almost got that Rancid, from that old punk band, Rancid. He's got a little bit of that voice, but obviously with this kind of Americana, whatever, southern, is it blues or rockabilly, or not rockabilly, bluegrass kind of a thing? I don't know what you would call this actually. I'm completely out of my element here. This part, the guitars are a little too loud, so when those drums are dun 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 and the guitars come in, the plucked guitars, they're really really loud, so you probably want to mix those in a little bit more. So make sure that kick and snare really punch through the mix. It's almost like you should always have a wall of music, and then punching through that wall should be the kick and snare. That's typically how I do a lot of my mixes, because I want to make people feel this track, and getting that kick to really punch through with low frequencies and high frequencies is the way to do that. So, but definitely very licensable sound though overall. So this kind of sound, reality shows use this kind of stuff. Typically that's where I see most of this being used. There's a lot of those reality shows like from the South, fur traders, whatever, animal trappers, that kind of thing. There's a lot of that stuff going on. National Geographic, I don't know, a lot of networks use that stuff right now. So you can definitely see a lot of play that way. All right, Eglis or Eglis. So let's see what you got here. This link does not contain any file. Sorry, nothing there. Kevin Cloutier. All right. Oh, be aware, you guys, if you're using box.com to be sending files, I had one of my Syndicate members actually confirm for me, because I've heard a lot of tracks sent to me, and Box seems to really compress files. And once in a while, I've heard clicks and pops and weird things happen. And he actually confirmed this the other day for me, that he's been sending music to a library and they told him, hey, there's clicks and pops and weird things going on. And he ended up sending him the same file he had sent through Box, but a different way, and it worked fine and it sounded awesome. So be aware of that. Whatever the compression thing that Box uses or whatever their file system is, you might be sort of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. So I highly recommend Dropbox. You can use, obviously, YouTube. You can use, what else? There's a couple of other programs that my members use, and I'm blanking on them right now. But Box.com, I'm not impressed yet. So just word to the wise. You might be sending tracks, and we'll see what this sounds like, but you might be sending tracks that are overcompressed and have artifacts in them that you don't want to have. This is very minimal, man. So if this would be like an alt mix, I would say, yeah, this would probably work for somebody who wants maybe just the plucks and a little bit of this kind of pad feeling you have going on here. But I wouldn't consider this a full track. So even though you're calling this a minimal tension track, I still think you need to have some drums, you need to have some percussion. We need a little bit more going on, and obviously it needs to be a lot longer. 53 seconds is not going to cut it. You're going to need at least 2 to 3 minutes long. But, you know, sometimes a library will say, hey, give us that 60-second cut down with no drums and no this and no bass. Just give us this. This would be a great alt mix. But if this is a full mix, you did say shorter, so I'm guessing this is sort of a cut down of maybe another version you had. Then, hey, this could be perfect. But as a full track, it would need a little bit more to it. But it is great in terms of it does provide the sort of background ethereal feeling. And it's not going to get in the foreground and distract the viewer from what's going on in the foreground with the artist. So awesome. Good stuff, Kevin. Really cool, man. All right, Fuzzbox. Let's see what you got here for SoundCloud.
Out of shadow into the light.
Okay, first thing, I'm hearing some drum timing issues with the drums that you use. I'm not sure if this is a live drummer or you're using loops or whatever, but it feels off. There's parts of the kick that just feel like it's off the grid. So if you can get this a little bit closer to the grid with MIDI notes, I would highly recommend doing that so you can control making sure this is right on, because right now it feels a little off. And I think also the guitars might be a little bit early as well. So there's definitely some timing issues here and there with your instrument. So double check that.
In the sky, chasing stars or satellites. Nothing is out there. The truth is all here. You need to believe. Now watch it all just disappear. It's a trick of the light. Another look in your eyes to see.
Now, I don't know if you're using like maybe some sort of a plugin for your mastering bus, but it feels like there might have been like a, I don't know, like an isotope or some sort of a mastering plugin that you threw on this that really just compressed everything and it did everything at once, because this track does really feel like the tube of toothpaste. It has that sound, like it feels really squeezed, and it doesn't feel big and rich and full. Like I'm missing a lot of the low end, a lot of the low energy. And so I would definitely take a look at how you're mastering these kind of tracks. And if you are just using like sort of a one plugin to try to do like fix everything in one plugin, I would highly encourage you not to, or discourage you from doing that. I think you should be using an EQ plugin, a compressor, maybe a stereo spreader, an exciter, and an ad limiter, and then obviously maybe a metering plugin, so you're actually metering and paying attention to what's happening in your mix, and not just doing like a, let me just go to a preset, okay, this is a rock track, and that's what a lot of these mastering plugins do. And it's just one of those things where, like, you know, there's so many variables with your track that like the chances of getting one plugin that absolutely just perfectly fits your mix and your music, it's virtually impossible that that's going to work. You can start with a plugin and a preset, but I like to use different plugins for different things. Like I want to just think about the EQing on my mastering. So I'll literally pull up a linear phase EQ on my master bus and just mess with the EQ of my entire mix, right? And not massive things, right? If you're having to do massive changes with your mastering, it means you didn't do something in the beginning. You didn't use the right samples, or maybe you didn't mix the original tracks right. But you shouldn't be doing massive things. You should be boosting a little bit of the high end, maybe boosting a little bit of the low end, taking out a little problem frequency here and there. Small changes. You shouldn't be doing a huge, like, fix it in the mix operation.
It's a trick of the light. Your superstition is wrong, you'll see.
Now, I don't know. I like this kind of, your voice actually reminds me kind of maybe a Duran Duran, kind of like an 80s pop sound. So I don't know if you do pop sound, but like, man, if you could do like a cool throwback to some Duran Duran stuff with some synths, obviously with modern production styles, you might have a really cool little niche that you can get yourself into that'd be kind of like a Duran Duran sound alike, because your voice really would lend itself to that. And I know this is a rock track and you're probably more of a rock producer and a musician as well, but you know, part of the thing about this business is that you don't have to stay in your lane that you've been staying in probably most of your career. So if you're a rock guy and you're a rock producer, that's what your identity is, that's the kind of music you've been making. I can tell you, I started off as a heavy metal kind of rap rock guy. I was doing like Linkin Park crossover stuff when I first got started. You know, these days I do dubstep, I do EDM, I do minimal backstory. I still do rock, I still do pop. But, you know, I've really gotten out of my little bubble of like, well, I know I make rock music and I just always, you know, pick up my guitar and that's what I do. I still do that and I do that really well. But like, you know, this opportunity or this industry, you don't have to really pigeonhole yourself into one category. I don't think you should be trying to do everything. Obviously, you should probably limit it to maybe 2 or 3. But if you haven't considered maybe getting into this sort of synthy Duran Duran style, with your voice, I'd highly recommend it because there could be a big opportunity for you there, getting into that sound for sure. All right, let's see. Blue Demo. Your name is Lon De Leon. You wanted to thank me for all the YouTube videos and knowledge you've been sharing. You're welcome, man. Best out there on music, and thanks, dude. I appreciate that. Yeah, the reason why I put all of this together, why I put my YouTube channel together, why I put my course together is because as I got started in this business and as I continued on with it, first of all, when I told people what I did for a living, they're like, what? What is that? You make, so you make like those jingles for commercials? Like nobody really understands what I do. So the first thing was trying to just let them know, educate them on what I do. But beyond that, if they made music, their second question was always like, cool, well, how do I do that? And I would always try to explain it, but I'm like, you know, this is going to take a while to explain because there's a lot of tiny little nuanced information that you probably need to be aware of, not to mention how to produce tracks for this industry. It's a little bit different than you've been doing. So that was the start of me thinking about like, well, let me look online and see what's out there. And sure, there are some YouTube channels, there are some other products out there, there are some blogs, some ebooks and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't find a sort of like A to Z, like completely like if you don't know anything about this industry, where do you get started? How do you get started to, even if you have some knowledge in this, but you haven't been seeing the success, how do you sort of like pick up the pieces maybe where you didn't pick them up before? And when I looked online and did not see that, I was like, bingo, that's what I need to do. I need to create an absolute like just encyclopedia online of you're brand new to music licensing, or maybe you've been at it for a while, but you're not seeing success. I want to give you the A to Z, like here's how you get started, or if you're in the middle, here's where you pick up from where you are right now, taking you all the way to full-time income, maintaining your relevancy, and doing this for the rest of your life if you want to. And again, like my channel and my program are not really about like artistic originality or how to express yourself fully to your, this is really about making an income with your music. Okay, so a lot of people will say, well, what about like, making music that's I don't want to make music that sounds like somebody else or this and that. And I'm like, listen, this business might not be for you, okay? If that turns you off the fact that you probably have to make music that falls in line with other producers and what music supervisors want, and they don't necessarily they're not coming to you to go like, give us your creative genius, like whatever you want to do, we'll throw it into our TV show. If that turns you off, that people aren't going to come to you that way, you should probably not get into this industry because it is not for everybody. And my focus is really about turning this into a full-time income for you. So if you love making music and you are not turned off by that, in fact, you're excited by the fact of being able to serve somebody with money and exposure, obviously, to grant to you for your music, then I want to be the sort of guide for that. I want to help you get there in any way I possibly can. And my knowledge, my wisdom for what I've put together in this industry is really what this all is about. I mean, everything that I've put together in my master course, everything I talk about in the Syndicate, everything I talked about here on YouTube, I didn't research this stuff, you guys. This is just my experience, okay? So you're getting direct practical knowledge and feedback from somebody who has made the mistakes, done things the hard way, screwed up 1,000 times, paid my price for doing things the wrong way and not probably getting myself as educated as I can. And the big reason is because when I got started, man, about 10 years ago, there was nothing like this online. There was no educational resource. So you guys are pretty lucky, I think, right now to have this kind of a sort of starting point. Like I always tell my students, I'm like, if somebody like me had been out there 10 years ago, putting all this out there, providing this kind of structure and feedback and guidance, I would be probably 10 times further ahead in this business than I am now. Don't get me wrong. I'm very happy and very comfortable with my income, with my success. I'm all good with that. But again, not making those mistakes in the first couple of years and just getting right to the point of making good music, partnering with good libraries, looking out for what kind of deals I was signing from the start, that it does make you wonder, well, how much further I would have been ahead. So for you guys that are just getting started right now, you're in such a better position. I know maybe you don't even know that, or it's kind of hard to understand that, but I'm just telling you from a perspective of I've been where you are getting started in this business, not necessarily having the guidance and the knowledge you guys have right now, even just feedback like this, having this kind of feedback, you guys are in a very, very powerful position right now to get started. So I hope you're taking all this knowledge and feedback that I'm giving you guys and you're going to put it to work, okay? I don't do this just for fun, that you guys are just clicking on my videos and watching them. I really want to see results from you guys. I want to see and I want to hear from you. If you're getting, accepted by music libraries and things are going well from you, let me know, email me, shoot me a comment, leave a comment on these videos. I need to see results from you guys. That's what I'm doing this for. And if I'm not seeing enough results, then I'm going to change my approach. I'm going to try something new. But if I don't get you guys results, then I'm not doing my job. And so far, I'm seeing some pretty awesome results from people who are letting me know that they're getting their first contract, they're getting their first placements. As you guys saw, we're getting placements in the Syndicate and stuff like that. So obviously results, that's what I live for. I don't care about the theory of things. I don't care about the feel-good emotions of things. Like I want, checks, contracts, royalties going in my members' accounts. And then I feel good about what I'm doing, okay? All right, rant over. Let's get started. Sorry for the delay here. All right, these strings, I would swap those out. The drums, I like everything that's going on in here, but these strings, when they came in, it was just like, ooh, these are definitely fake. These are definitely keyboard strings. Got to swap those out. So either try a new library or go for a different sound with those strings, because they will not do you any good, because we live in a very competitive world these days. Thanks to technology, it's like a double-edged sword, because all these new companies are releasing these great sample libraries and plugins to get lifelike strings and real strings that were recorded, but you get to alter them with your keyboard. Because those are out there now, we can all get lifelike sounding strings. So that means that strings like this aren't going to pass anymore. You can't do this. Maybe 10 years ago, this might have been something that would be, or maybe 15, 20 years ago would have been somewhat acceptable. But these days, these strings just wouldn't pass. So I dig it. This has got a great sound. I like the sort of dubstep cinematic thing you got in here. You're definitely doing this cross like hybrid thing. Good. Definitely in the right path there. I do feel that this part is just a little bit noisy, though. There's a lot happening, and the strings are kind of playing the same note over and over again. Obviously, I think replacing those strings is a better idea. But what I would encourage you to do is, rather than having everything playing at the same time, strings and dubstep growls and all this stuff, have a sort of call and response thing where you have the growl, brow, and then have the strings come in, dun 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 dun, wow, dun 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 dun. So do like a call and response back and forth, so my ears and the listeners' ears don't get tired from hearing way too much happening all the time. Probably need more of a thud and that little drop right there. And maybe even an 808 drop. Something like that would be really cool. Now, I like that you throw this guitar lead at the end because that separates this chorus from the other one. So you definitely have the fundamentals here figured out about like providing variations and differences all the way across. So, but yeah, I think getting away from those strings and probably not being so intense with all of your instruments playing on top of each other, and try to give them all a little bit of space and try that call and response thing. You might find some really cool results with that. So. All right, moving on. We got through that one. So we'll see how much we can get through. Jillian Wilson, see what you got. Dropbox link here.
Baby, you've got my heart, and this you know, on the inside and the outside, you're such a beautiful soul.
Beautiful voice. Awesome. Really, really cool voice. Very cinematic. I can definitely see this thing, your voice getting there. Drums, we've got some timing issues. I feel like there's some timing issues with the bass as well. The instruments themselves don't sound that interesting and lively. So if these were all MIDI notes or MIDI instruments that you created here, or maybe a producer created for you, I don't know. Probably need to update these sounds, get them a little more lifelike sounding. Try to research, look at Contact 5. There's awesome piano libraries, bass libraries, drum. Like literally with Contact 5, you can have your whole band. Okay, you do have to probably find different libraries for each instrument, and they will cost you, but the sounds will be lifelike. You'll feel like you're really in the room with the musicians, and this one doesn't quite feel like that. Especially the drums. The drums really didn't feel that real. The piano, probably we could get a little bit more lifelike as well. And because your voice is so awesome and so lively that I want to feel like I'm in the room with this kind of band, almost like we're in a sort of either a coffee shop or we're in a little diner or a cafe, a restaurant, that kind of a thing, or maybe a jazz club or whatever. But these drums, they feel like somebody sat there with a like an electronic drum set, you know, and they had that kind of like fake electronic sound. They don't really quite feel like real instruments.
Yeah, I love you and how you do it. Take control. It's the things you do to where my spirit moves when I'm with you.
Your vocals are beautiful. I would probably just add a little bit more wetness to them, like maybe a reverb or a little delay or something. They just need a little bit of space around them. They feel a little too dry, especially with this mix. And I feel like overall this mix is a little bit dry. Like I need some more life, some more room in this. Like I want to feel like, again, the room that we're in. And right now, because there's no reverb on pretty much anything, it doesn't seem like, it feels like everything's isolated. The drums are right here, perfectly recorded, right, with no echoes and nothing around it. You're in a control booth over here, and that's what's not pulling me into this mix as much as it possibly could. So if you can get the same reverb sort of effect happening on all your instruments, then I'll feel like, okay, I'm in the room with you and there's something happening here. And that'll also obviously make it much more appealing for a music licensing opportunity for a supervisor or whatever it may be.
Three cheers for us. Three cheers for us. Three cheers. Take control. It's the things you do where my spirit moves when I'm with you. I'm with you.
And the vocals at parts, not the entire time, but they're a little bit loud compared to the mix. So you probably want to drop them down a little bit. They feel like they're a little bit too in my face. But again, maybe just adding a little bit of reverb to those would actually solve that like right away. So you have to experiment, but definitely get used to putting some space around you and the instruments that you're doing. And obviously think about updating some of those sounds you're doing. So did I just miss something? What happened here? Oh, okay. As I'm getting new emails, it's pushing things down. So I'm sometimes missing this. Sorry. All right. First demo. Let's see what you got here, man. Track is not found. It's been removed. Sorry, buddy. Not seeing that one either. A lot of these tracks, I don't know, maybe it's just because some time's gone by and you guys have taken down your tracks, but I'm not sure why they're not showing up. Instrumental track from Mario. Let's see what you got here, buddy. Really cool vibe, man, but we're taking too long to get to the meat of your track right now. 23 seconds in, and I still don't know what's happening yet. We're just kind of setting the stage. I'll tell you where you probably should be starting. Let's see. Yeah, so what I would have done, since you have this really cool thing happening here, just cut this intro in half. You don't need to have two repetitions of that intro phrase. Same thing with this one. It was just 2 phrases long. We don't really need to have that, so you could probably cut all of this in half. I'm not sure if you meant to do this with the kick. The kick feels rushed in some of those double patterns. Dun, 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 dun. So maybe you meant to do that, but I think maybe push those a little bit back, get them a little bit more on the grid or a little bit later because it feels a little bit rushed. Like that. Dun, dun. It just feels like it kind of hit before it was supposed to. Now, the one thing with this is that I kind of feel like you've just added one little piece, and but we're kind of still hearing the same vocal thing happening, that vocal synth that you have going on there. And everything's kind of just feeling about the same, even though there's like different elements adding or whatever. So you want to make sure, though, that that's a great way to start, but you do need to make sure that like every part feels distinct. And it doesn't just feel like, okay, this feels like the intro just with like a hi-hat now. It needs to feel like, yes, we've grown into a different place, and emotionally, we've gone to a bigger place. And this one, I don't feel like we're growing enough. It's changing, and I think that's a good thing. But I think we need to add more. We need to put more elements on there, or even at parts, change up the chord progression, change up the melody, bring a little bit more variation to your tracks, because this one does feel like a copy and paste thing, and almost like a garage band sort of project where you just kind of have different things that are just sort of stacking up and it looks like a Lego project. That's definitely how you get started, making sure there's changes or whatever, but that's not where you finish, if that makes sense. So this is a good starting point. And then of course it's a slow, you know, kind of mellow track, and that one doesn't get as much play as an up-tempo one, but a little bit more production needs to be done on this one for sure. But I like the sound though, those really cool instruments you have in there. I like those. Those could definitely do some really cool stuff for an opportunity. All right, Cobb Bussinger. Discovered about a month ago and I've listened to many of the videos. All right. Glad you found me, man. Don't forget, guys, if you're liking this, like this video, okay? Definitely helps me out. Make sure you subscribe as well. I'm digging this, Cobb. This is really cool, man. Obviously, you've been at this for a while and you know what you're doing, so I don't have a lot of notes. I think the one thing I want to hear maybe as this part progresses is a little bit more of a high-end percussion sound. I want to hear more of a shaker or something like that to kind of help push the momentum a little bit forward, because it feels a little bit repetitive, because we're kind of doing the same thing. And we've been doing that the entire time through, so we need to either add a little bit more variation with those string patterns that we're using or start adding more percussion-wise to kind of help push it forward a little bit. And I think I would add a little bit of a transitional effect right there. So I probably would want a little bit more of either a string riser or a swoosh or something coming up here. So we have a little transition here. So maybe just get a little bit fancier with how you're putting your production stuff together for these little transitional turnaround areas. This is awesome, man. I'm just like lost in this track right now. Yeah, it sounds like you've been in this for a while, man. I think you kind of know what you're doing here with this kind of a track. So definitely thumbs up, man. I really don't have that many notes for you. It's just a beautiful song. It's well produced. It's well crafted. And obviously it's really well structured for this industry. Again, maybe a little bit of the repetition you might want to work on and stuff, but that's nitpicky. That's really a nitpicky thing. I think a library would jump all over this, granted that they needed this kind of music in their catalog. So good stuff, man. All right, 10 points. Let's see what you got. I'd say we were taking a little too long to get into this kind of kick where we're now into the beef of the music. So probably just want to start the track somewhere around here, like this 13-second mark. or right there at 16 when you kind of started in. We don't want to have a long 20, 30-second intro to our tracks because we want to get right to the point of like, what is the real beef of this track? What's the real vibe, the emotional content of this track, so that a library, an editor, a supervisor, somebody who's choosing music can find out exactly what this track can deliver right away, so they can make a decision. If it's taking 20 seconds, then they're not really hearing it. They're just going to move on to the next one. And it would suck if you got passed over, even though you have a great, awesome track, just because they didn't hear what the point of it was soon enough. So just as a general rule, I would stay away from these really long pads you have in this track, the whatever that sound is up there. It's just plugging away. It kind of sounds like a Rhodes keyboard or something like that. I would stay away from long pads like that for a couple of reasons. One is it slows down the momentum of your track, and it doesn't feel like we're moving forward enough because it's playing the same thing over and over again. Second of all, this is one of those sort of like not so well known parts of the licensing industry. When you have long pads in your track, and let's say they want to use one part of your chorus, one part of your bridge or something like that, and they have a scene that just only has enough time for this part of the chorus, this part of the bridge. Well, if you have long pads and let's say this pad is different note from that pad, from the chorus to the bridge, and they put them together, it'll sound weird because all of a sudden in the middle of this pad it cuts off, as opposed to if it was just like staccato notes, dun 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 dun, and then the bridge starts dun 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 dun, or something like that, right? But if they're long notes and they're not matching, it's gonna feel like a weird mix match. Because remember, they can go in and copy and paste anything they need out of your track. So I would just, as a general rule in this business, unless it's specifically requested of you, of course, if they say we want long pads for these emotional background cues, obviously do that. But when you're just trying to get started and you're just trying to get like some of your first tracks out there, stay away from using long whole notes or long, 2-bar or 4-bar where you just hold down one key on your keyboard and just have that play over and over again. Because you'll find that you'll have less. If you get placements, you might get them, but you'll probably get less and less of them. And the frequency or the duration of each of your placements will get smaller and smaller. Remember, you want to get past that 60-second mark, because your pay rate increases actually through BMI and ASCAP's payment system. So getting longer placements is actually the name of the game. Getting a lot of them, but also for everyone you get, you don't want to get just like 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Try to get, a minute and 30, a minute and 45. That's when you can get some really awesome money. Kind of missing, the reason why I'm skipping around in this one, Tim, a lot is because I'm kind of missing a lead. I'm not really hearing what's the focus of the track. A lot of background instruments, you got the kick, the drums, you got a bass, you got like this kind of synth thing going on, but I don't feel like where's the main melody, right? What's the thing that's like pulling me into the track and kind of delivering the ultimate like emotional message? I don't feel like I'm getting in there right now. It just feels very like backgroundy. And if that's what you intended, that's great. But if this is intended to be a fully produced track, I think you do need to add a lead. You got to add something here. Same thing, we have this long kind of pad going in the background. Yeah, so it feels like there's a big hole. Like this would be an alt mix, right? When I hear this, I'm thinking like, okay, this is the version of your song where you took out your lead, right? So it just has the bass, the kick, kind of the pads or whatever. But you need to have a lead, right? There's got to be something in there, whether it's a synth or a guitar or a vocal. I mean, there's got to be something that's kind of taking the focus of this track. And right now, without it, it's not pulling me into it, okay? So this could be used as a background cue, like I said, but I think as it is now, definitely adding one more instrument or maybe a couple of lead elements is definitely one way to go about that. All right. Check out my music and include a link. Fracture Mechanics. All right. Broad Jam. I think you're the first one to send me a Broad Jam link ever, I think. The first thing that bothered me so far, I like where it's going, but that crash cymbal really felt fake. Really didn't feel like a real crash cymbal. And also, my rule with crash cymbals is typically if you're going to throw one in, probably should have a kick underneath it. It needs to have something that's, impacting it. The only exception for that would be if you have like a cymbal roll, something like that. But if it's just like an impactful accent crash, typically, and I understand if you're not a drummer, most people who are not drummers don't get this stuff, but I was a drummer for many years, so this is kind of intuitive for me. So I have to remember to remind producers who are not drummers that this is typically what a drummer would do, is you hit that kick pedal with those crash cymbals. Your guitar, the distorted guitar is really quiet. It needs to be jacked up a lot louder than it is right now because it's a cool little riff you got going on there, but it's so small compared to the kick and that psychedelic guitar strumming you have. That's pretty cool. I like this psychedelic thing. It really works cool. You can definitely, what I would say is put together a full album full of this kind of music, where you have rock mixed with kind of some psychedelic stuff. You could do it all the way from like having some 60s sounding tracks to all the way to like maybe having some 90s, sounding tracks, but definitely have it like sort of like a hippy dippy kind of a drug infused rock album. You could definitely get some great placements with that. Obviously making sure they're probably more upbeat. They kind of have some great energy going forward, but definitely check out your mix. And one thing that I just wanted to talk about real quick is with these companies like Broadjam and what was the last one we did? It was Song Trader, all that kind of stuff. I know that they allow you to upload your tracks, but I'm not sure if they're giving anybody feedback on like, hey, this track is cool, but you might want to change this or change that if you want to get more placements. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. Do they offer that kind of a thing? Because here's the issue that I have with these large companies that just accept anybody's music and they put anybody's music up on their site. What it does is it kind of, if your music's not ready to go, right, and you get this kind of maybe false sense that because they accepted your tracks on their website, you think you're going to start getting placements. But it sounds like they don't really have much of a filtering process to make sure tracks are hitting certain guidelines or maybe hitting a certain level of quality. And that doesn't do you guys any good, actually, because if you're just uploading whatever tracks you think are cool, but they're actually not really ready to go, it might give you this false sense of like you're making progress in the industry when they're just up online. But and then the other thing is, I don't know if it's so great for these companies because then they have a large number of tracks that just aren't really ready to go. And so for their clients that are looking for high quality tracks that are awesome, it might be harder for them because there's just a large pool of all these tracks out there. So I might be completely wrong on all this, and I just don't really work with these kind of companies that much, and I've never put my music on these sites, so I don't really know how it is. But you guys let me know. Please email me. Let me know what your experience has been with Broadjam, with Song Trader, and all that kind of stuff. Do they offer you feedback? Do they give you guidelines? Do they say, hey, this one's not high quality enough, go ahead and do this, and then we can get you up online so we can get you some placements or at least shop you and put you available for our clients? Let me know because I'd be curious if they actually do that kind of a service for you guys. All right, Dylan Bowen. So Dylan, I definitely think instruments, samples, I'd probably swap those out. But the only reason why I'm not so like sure about that is because this sound actually could get a lot of placements in the corporate world for training videos, instructional videos. They actually would like this kind of a thing a lot, actually. So I do think you should update your samples, because a lot of these do sound very, they're MIDI sounding, right? They don't sound very lifelike. So I think just updating some of the sounds you're using. Obviously, your composing skills are out of this planet. I mean, you have some amazing piano skills, composing skills, all that good stuff. So that's not the issue at all. But you have these sounds that definitely make it sound a little bit more like music, like kind of like elevator music, you know, which sometimes in the corporate world, they go for that. They really want that sound, but less and less these days. I think more and more of these corporate clients want something that sounds a little bit more contemporary, a little bit more like it could be on the radio sort of a sound. So with your skills, I would recommend you go, and I'm not sure what DAW you're using, but definitely look into, if you're not using Logic 10, I'd look into Logic 10, because even the sounds that just come with that program, it's $200. I mean, you do have to have an Apple computer, but you know, for $200, you can get really great sounds and great plugins that all come with it. It's not that expensive these days to really update your entire sound palette and get yourself on par with some great professionals out there. So I definitely look into that, because your production skills are ridiculous. I mean, your composing and music skills I envy them. They're really, really great. But those samples, they're kind of holding you back a little bit right now. And they sound dated, like those bells, the synths you're using. That's definitely like a late 80s, early 90s kind of a sound. And if that was the era that you started composing, I know that it's hard to kind of like try to like reinvent yourself and pretend you're a modern young producer in today's industry or whatever. But that is what you need to do. You really need to sort of like reinvent yourself, listen to modern music, kind of get away from what's comfortable and normal for you and what you've been used to doing, and challenge yourself to maybe update your sounds, update your composing style, try some new things, so that if somebody heard your music, they wouldn't know where you, like, they wouldn't know if you're like an 18-year-old kid or you're a 55-year-old man. Like, they don't know where you're coming from, but your music sounds like it's current, it's modern, it's great, it could be licensed, okay? So I'd highly recommend you do that and try to go back to the drawing board with what you're using here. Yeah, because you got some music skills, man. I can tell you've got chops and you know what you're doing there. So you got a lot going for you, man. Awesome Ox, cool. You focus on hip-hop EDM cues. Here's one of the experimental. Cool. Let's see what you got. Just being real with you, man, this one's probably too experimental. I don't see a lot of uses for this. I don't think there'd be a lot of opportunities for that. Mix-wise, I need a little bit more low-end, though. I don't hear a lot of like low-end with your thud. But there's just, with the instruments that you chose and the melodies and the lead notes that you chose, it's very noisy and kind of just weird. I can't really sink my teeth into it. I can't wrap my arms around anything. It just feels very foreign and alien. And of course, you did Surfing with the Metal Alien. So you actually nailed it right. Actually, the one thing that I would say you did really well is that you really tagged, or you titled your track appropriately. Even though I don't think this track would probably get a lot of play in this industry, it's something for all of us to really know moving forward, that you do need to not so much title your tracks what you just want to title them because you're just feeling that way. But really, like, if I didn't hear this track, what would I really want to, what would it give me, what image would I get? And Surfing with a Metal Alien, you got that, man. I mean, I'm trying to think maybe the surfing part. Let's see. You know, maybe what I would have gone with a title would have been like Broken Arcade Game. You know what I'm saying? Like, this really feels like, whoa, something's wrong. I don't know what's happening. And it kind of has this sort of like electronic drum sound to it. So I would have gone with a title like that. I'm not really catching the surfing reference in this music. If it was kind of like one of those dun, 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 that kind of a feel, then yes, I'd be like, okay, I get the surfing thing. But I'm not quite getting that with this one. Yeah, I would definitely stick more towards traditional. Give me a melody, give me a lead, Give me just sort of like a chord progression. That's pretty much what you should probably stick towards. This one, even though it's cool and it's kind of experimental, this industry, you're not going to find a lot of uses for that kind of stuff. And I'm sorry to burst the bubble, but I'm just kind of be honest with you. So you're not wasting your time making a bunch of music, shopping it, and then it doesn't get accepted. So I want to save you that like headache and heartache. So Marco, all right, cool. You sent me one, it wasn't the right one, and this one, hopefully, is the right one. Yeah, I think you got this one. I love this already, Marco. Crank it up a little bit. It's a little bit quiet. We got timing issues right here. So hopefully you heard that. Like right when that drum came in and the rest of the music came in, we got off a little bit. So you got to make sure you're right on the grid. And I don't know if you recorded this with a live drummer or if this is MIDI, but if you didn't do it right with the drummer, I would swap out these drums. I'd get rid of them and I would program some MIDI drums. I'd go get a great sounding drum kit, drum library, and reprogram it because this is just not quite on the track. And also your snare, I don't know if all of the drums, I definitely have the snare panned off hard left. Probably wouldn't do that. I normally keep at least kick and snare normally right down the middle. If you want hi-hats or toms panned out, that'd be something else. But if you want like a backbone to your track that really drives it, keep that kick and snare right down the middle. That's at least the way that I go about it. And that kick needs to come through a lot heavier. It's so small right now, it's barely audible. I need to hear that boom, 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 If you can fix the timing on this stuff, you will be a beast in this business, okay? So this is a huge licensable sound. Commercials, corporate people like this, reality shows like this, obviously. And not many people can pull this really great sound off. And you have a great sound, a great songwriting ability here. I can definitely hear it. So you have that, but you've got to get this stuff on time, completely locked to the grid, and make sure that this stuff sounds really, really solid. Quantize things, right? Quantizing will be your new best friend, especially with your drums and stuff. But I feel like everything kind of is a little bit not together. And we need a little bit more high-end frequency from your mix. It feels like it's a little bit dark right now. So give us a little bit more, like when you're plucking those strings, the banjo, I want to kind of hear your fingernails on those strings. That means you got to boost up a lot of those frequencies so I can hear that. Because right now it feels like a very dark mix when it's actually a bright sound. It's a really bright, happy, upbeat track. So, all right, a couple more today, guys, and then I'm going to call it quits. Paul Blackman, sorry about the first email. Okay. Let's see what you got.
Yeah. You know what time it is? What time is it? Dr. Frost. Who's that? Mars Noel. Who that be? Paul Blackman. Yeah. It's that knock, man. It's that party music. Alabama. Want everybody reporting to the dance floor. Bombs jumping up on this one right here. It's so tough. It's so right. It's all healthy. Yeah. This what matters the most. Hitting the dance floor when I'm hard like toast. Told them like Rakim, I ain't no joke. This fire, straight gas, ain't no smoke. Heavy crack out the glass, ain't no coke. Blast, we gon' smash, ain't no.
Be careful with these delays that you have going on here. So I hear in your vocals once in a while you throw this little delay on there, but it's not on the grid and it's kind of off time with the track, so it's kind of throwing everything off a little bit. So keep it simple. Either do quarter notes, eighth notes, or half notes. But keep things like right on the grid, because that one just feels like a little bit off in terms of the rhythm that's going on with the rest of your track. The feel is cool. I like that you, so far I haven't heard any bad words, so that's good that you've kept it clean. You definitely have to keep it clean for this industry. What I would recommend, though, is that even though this is a great party track and it's upbeat, even this sound right now is a little bit dated, because this kind of feels like a little bit more 2006, 2008 kind of a club party sort of track. These days, trap, what is it, like maybe some glitch step, even like the sort of cool, chill, tropical sound with the pop world is kind of more what's going on, or hard EDM, like intense hard EDM is kind of what's happening now with like in the club scenes and that kind of stuff. So if you're trying to get into this business and you want to get your music in those scenes where there's a party or people are dancing, well, unless the scene is from 2008, like they're actually doing like a throwback, like a time sequence of like, hey, this happened in 2008 in the club, they're going to want to have music that sounds like today's current cutting edge music. So listen to the stuff that's on the dance tracks and the dance charts right now on Billboard, and listen to the kind of sounds that they have, and it's actually going to be different than this. So that's the only thing that I'm saying maybe you want to start thinking about as you move forward and start producing new tracks. Try to update the sounds and the style that you're using a little bit so it matches more what's going on in today's club world.
Ash, 101, ain't no dope. I got a thing for my female folk. I keep them on the line for days. Open the door up and ride away. 1,000,001 spots decide the ways. Coach on the side, I provide the plays. Divide your days. That be mainly hot. This ride ever coming down, mainly not. From the ghetto, boy, but mainly pop. That M.O.P. ZZ Top. It's a party, shutting the bar down. Popping the trunk and bringing the car around. Hey, shorty, taking them all down. Trying to swim with the sharks, all drown. It's a party.
Little bit of compression too. You can see that this track is really, really loud and it's kind of squished. So just be careful on that. Back off those settings a little bit. Don't over compress things. Don't over crank things up. There are, ways to get your track louder without getting it so compressed and so squished. So definitely just be careful of that. But man, this chorus feels good. It feels like party. But again, the only thing that I'm hearing is that it's a little bit dated. So you might want to just double check on that stuff moving forward as you do more music. So let's do 1, 2, 3. Let's see, 1, 2. And we'll do 2 more here, guys, and then I got to call it quits today. I'm sorry, but thank you so much for staying tuned. Those of you that are still here, hope you're enjoying the show and enjoying the feedback. Again, leave a like if you haven't yet. Make sure you let people know that you like this stuff. It helps other people find this. Love this. Arthur? Yeah, I think that's your name. Love this, man. I need more loudness, though, from your guitars. They're very quiet. They're not very intense. Maybe even add a little bit more distortion to them. I really need these things to be kind of cranking up out of the speakers. Huge. Very, very licensable sound right here. Very, very licensable. Yeah, these guitars all sound like little tiny soda cans. That's kind of what they sound like, but I want them to be bum, 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 bum. I just heard a new pop artist. Oh, I was cruising on YouTube. I'll have to remember who it was. It's a 2-piece band, and they have this really crazy video where people are like swimming in like milk, like on all sides of the room that they're in, like on the walls, on the ceiling. It's a trippy video. Maybe some of you guys know what I'm talking about. They have this kind of a sound, this kind of blues, rock, southern sound. But listen to them for references, and listen to them. I don't know what their name was. It's the first time I ever heard them. I never saw them again after that, so sorry I can't tell you who it is. But just look up modern pop charts that sound like this, and you'll find out who I'm talking about. Okay, so if you're gonna throw your vocals in here, I love the melody you're doing. It needs to be bigger though. So you're kind of doing this, and your music is bum bum bam bum 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 bum, and your little vocals, you know what I'm saying? Like there's not like it's a mismatch. It doesn't work. I need to hear. You should stack yourself up. I'm assuming you sang this on your own track. Stack yourself up like 10 times. Loop this part and yell it. Whoa, whoa, and really loud, high octave. Get that thing sounding great. Throw a doubler on your voice. Try to make it sound like there's an army of people. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You got to give it like that intensity that matches the music underneath it. When you sing really quiet, whoa, whoa, whoa. that part probably works because the music got relaxed, right? But in this intense part, whoa, maybe you did that. Let me see. Sometimes I get ahead of myself, so I apologize. Yeah, it doesn't seem like you did. So if you can't get that high, I think you probably can as far as your voice. You can probably do an octave higher. Go for it. If not, pay a vocalist from their home studio to do it for you. Send like 4 bars of your track. Just say, hey, just sing this. Whoa, 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 and sing that 10 times and send me all 10 stems. That's all you really got to do. Because yes, those vocals should be in this track. It'll make it much stronger for sure. But as they are now, they're a little bit too low. But really, really cool sound, man. I like that one. And what was the last one I was going to do? Bill. Okay. This is the one. So he sent me a lander link. I don't want to sign up for anything. Let me see if I can just hit play. Okay, man. Yeah, I'm not going to go in and create an account or do anything like that. So I can't do this, man. It's got to be a direct link to me. So this one's not working. So I apologize. Well, I'm not going to end on a no review. I can't do that. All right. Manuel, you're the lucky last one here. You're a film composer from Italy, but you're living in New York. Cool. Extremely competitive and very high quality. Well, the thing that I say about something being extremely competitive is every business you could want to be a part of can be extremely competitive, right? You want to go be a lawyer. Aren't there too many lawyers? Yeah, you ask me. Yes, there are too many lawyers. You want to be a real estate agent? Aren't there too many of those? Yeah, there probably are. You want to be a chef? But there's millions of chefs. Aren't there too many chefs? Yeah. So I really don't buy this sort of idea that it's too competitive. It is competitive, but name me a business or an industry that's not. And if you find one, you're probably not going to tell anybody about it because you're just going to want to gobble it up for yourself. So life is a competition. Life is a struggle. Life, takes hard work. Okay. So just accept that before you get into this business. It's not going to come easy. You're not going to get anything handed to you. You're going to have to earn what you get. As long as you can accept that, first and foremost, it won't be this massive, just pulling your hair out operation. You're going to know going in that it's going to take hard work, and you're going to have to persist for many months, many years before you see the income that's going to sustain you, to keep you alive and pay all of your bills or whatever. So as long as you start with that sort of expectation, that's why I'm very clear about that with you guys. There's a lot of people that'll tell you, you're always one placement away from making $50,000. Yes, it's true. You can get a placement like that, but the chances of doing that right out the bat, like right out when you just get into this business, very, very small. Unless you're an established artist that's a hot commodity and everybody wants a piece of you. But if you were like me when I got started, I was nobody. Nobody wanted a piece of me. And I got a couple of tiny little humble placements, and then it just started to grow and grow and snowball. And that's typically what most of the path is for all of us average Joes. So I'm sharing my approach this way, and I want you guys to know what the expectation should be moving forward. That yes, you can snag those massive, massive placements, but more than likely you're going to build it the way that I did, which is that you're going to get a little $10 check and then a $25 check, and then you get these little placements, and then it keeps growing and keeps growing, and you keep bumping up your numbers and the catalogs and the libraries that you're working with. And eventually you start seeing that your royalty checks get into the thousands. They start paying your bills, and then they grow and grow from there, okay? Not to mention, obviously, sync fees, upfront fees, custom jobs that you can get. All that stuff starts coming in as time goes on, too. All right, I am done with my second rant. Here we go. Manuel, let's listen. Your mix can be a lot louder, Manuel. Definitely, I think in like 3 or 6 dB louder, it's a little bit quiet. I like where it's going. It feels a little repetitive though. Like the strings, the samples sound good, but it kind of like feels like we've been doing this thing already too long and we're only 43 seconds into the track. So either you can cut these parts down a little bit or add a little bit more variation, so we're not just doing this dun 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 dun. That's what gives us feeling like we're on a treadmill and we're not moving forward. It could be a compression issue, but I also don't hear a lot of your low end coming through this mix. It feels really high end, but I can tell that this is a big, intense track. But in order to give me that intense feeling, I need to feel that low energy or whatever it is happening down there. Right now, it feels like it's kind of so compressed that it feels a little muddy down there, and it's not really well defined. So I need to have a little bit more of a punch and just more of the low end coming through this mix. Yeah, we need maybe some more like low end drums if they're in there. I can't really hear them, but we need more like something like that to help push this forward. Right now, it doesn't have anything down there in that low frequency range that really help push this and kind of rumble the ground. You got to remember that's kind of what you're doing here is you're pounding the pavement, which gives your listener this feeling of like, oh my God, something's going to happen. But without that, we feel like we've lost our center of gravity, and we're kind of just floating up in the high frequencies. Awesome ending, man. I really like that. But again, we need more of the low end, and we need these drums to really be pounding more. I kind of heard some low thuds, but not nearly as loud and impactful as they need to be. So really don't be shy on making sure that this track, boom, really rumbles the ground and those low frequencies as you go forward. But yeah, trailer music, cinematic stuff, this is definitely all over that. Work on the repetitive stuff a little bit though. Try to either, if you're going to do the same phrase over and over again, you have to always be adding. Something else has to come in to kind of add that variation to it, or don't be so repetitive with the same phrase that you're using. Switch it up here and there. Maybe make a 4-bar phrase that's different from the next, so you're not doing the 1, 1, 1, 1, but it's actually 4 different variations throughout, and then you can repeat that, and the whole track won't feel so repetitive. So, all right, guys, so that is it for today. Thank you so much. We will finish up the rest. I promise you the next one that I do, we're going to do that next Monday. I like these kind of Monday morning ones. They really work out well for me in my schedule. So we will do this 1 week from today. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video and stay tuned. I will get to the rest of the submissions that follow the directions. Remember, you had to send me a direct link. You had to put review my track as a subject line. And as long as you did all that, you will get your review. Last time, I'll repeat this again. Click on the button below if you want to join the Syndicate. I give this kind of feedback to all members of the Syndicate who participate. You obviously have to participate and submit music for either homework assignments or licensing opportunities or anything that I have going on. And then I give you feedback like this every single week. So if you're finding that until you got this kind of feedback from me, you really didn't know what you were doing, or you really didn't have a good solid understanding of what it would take to succeed licensing your music, that's what the Syndicate is about. It's about providing a very guided and structured pathway for you forward, as well as surrounding you with super high quality, talented producers and musicians that are working just as hard as you are and can encourage you, and I can encourage you, and we can encourage each other and also share information and tips. In fact, one of my members just got back from going to the production music conference, and he's like sharing with us all this really cool information that he got by going out there. So you get sort of like the bonus stuff that you really, sometimes I don't even talk to you guys about. I don't even tell you about all the cool stuff that happens in this group. There's actually so much that happens every week. But it's a beautiful thing. Like I said, I do pride myself on saying it's probably the best thing that I've ever created in my music licensing career ever. It's just awesome. It's exciting. People who are a part of it love it. Even people on the outside who just hear about it, they're like, man, that's so cool what you're doing, like helping people out, and providing this pathway. Even people in the business, I can tell you that libraries hit me up and say, I like what you're doing. I like that you're educating producers on how this business works. You're making our lives easier. You're helping them out. There's a lot of bad information or no information out there. So I'm sort of industry approved here with this this whole situation that I have going on here. At least that's the feedback that I'm getting. So again, click on that button below, that link below, and you can learn more about how to get started. So I'm going to go make my cup of tea as usual and rest my voice for about 45 minutes or so. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. And stay tuned. Next Monday, we'll be back for part 4 of 4. That'll be it. And then stay tuned, and I'll let you know when I do this next open review situation.